Welcome to the REVA Electrifying News. I guess it's May edition, May 2024. With me, as per usual, I have Mr. Eric Stevens joining us from the Listowel area. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing fantastic, Mark. First day of vacation for me for the long weekend here, and the weather is absolutely beautiful and loving it. So yeah, happy to be here. So
Absolutely. Always a great day, the first day of vacation. So our other normal co-host, Mr. Ian Graham, is not with us today, as you can notice. Ian is in the midst of travel. He recently went to Rushfest in Scotland. And if you've been following him on Facebook, he's been playing with bands on stage and all sorts of fun stuff. He's also sent us back some photos, which we'll go through in our presentation that relate to EV. So, but to get started, let's see if we can share our screen here. And here we go. Select the source. And we should now be seeing the REVA logo. Oops, what happened there?
You just have to make that window full screen there, Mark. Yeah, awesome.
There we go. All right. And we can, here's the arrow. Our first story. Eric's got this one.
Yeah, so this was an interesting story that I came across, and I saw that GE Aerospace was experimenting with ways to make electric motors more cost-effective and without the use of rare earth metals, so permanent magnet motors. So traditionally, you have the motors that are used in EVs today are induction motors or permanent magnet motors. Permanent magnet motors are typically more efficient, but one of the challenges of permanent magnet motors is they require certain rare earth elements to separate the different phases and to get the certain magnetic properties that you're looking for in an electric motor. So GE Aerospace was doing a bunch of research to say, hey, can we make an electric motor using lower cost materials and still have the same efficiency as a traditional permanent magnet motor? And this is a traditional permanent magnet motor, just constructed without those rare earth elements. And what they've done is they've come up with a new material. They call it a dual phase magnetic material that's basically a grade of steel in a sense. And it's potentially a game changer for bringing the costs down and making it much more, the supply chain for electric motors to be much more simplified and ubiquitous across different industries and different marketplaces. So I thought that this was a pretty interesting story for that. One of the interesting challenges, though, with this is that this dual phase steel material is actually such a low cost material that the margins and the ability to make a lot of money on it, you'd have to produce it in very high quantities. So to overcome the capital costs in order to make it. So one of the challenges is a bit of a chicken and the egg, is that now you'd have to have a whole bunch of commitments for people to use this technology in order for there to be enough investment in it to actually manufacture it in the volumes and the quantities that they want in order to do it. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well too. So it might need a bit of an industry push or some other type of push to make that happen.
Exactly. It's going to be, it's always difficult to get a new technology to be adopted by the industry unless it has, overwhelming benefits that people can see. But even in that case, you're right. The pre-orders on this would have to be almost in place in order for you to get it down to a cost-effective casting and first run, and then start to make this over and over again. So yeah, chicken and egg scenario is certainly present with this. But again, this kind of highlights what we've been seeing in the EV industry overall, that as time goes along, we've got all sorts of different engineers working on different projects that are trying to make parts more efficient, cheaper, combinations of those, or to source new things. How many times have we heard in the chemical battery world where they've been mixing elements and trying to make a better, produce a better mousetrap in effect, based on what they can find and what's available to them and what their expertise is. So this is just yet another example of somebody, using their expertise and trying to produce something that makes something more efficient or cheaper, or a combination of both. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Next. Now, this kind of dovetails into an actual story we did last month. And at that time, we had got word leaked out that Honda of Canada was going to be moving ahead with a new EV operation based out of Alliston, Ontario. And it turned out that a day later, Doug Ford did make a presentation on television about this new plant being set up. Actually, a few plants, not all the locations have been named to this point, but the governments of Ontario and Canada made a co-presentation about Honda investing in the area of $15 billion for a new plant that is going to start operations for EVs. Now, that is a huge feather in the cap of Ontario and Canada for landing Honda to produce those type of vehicles. Obviously, Honda has had a long-term relationship with Ontario already, with the Alliston plant, with the manufacturing of vehicles. But this is just another win for us in the EV world as Ontario becomes more and more relevant. Now, with that naming of Ontario as the new plant that Honda is going to be opening, this secondary parts plant was named just a day and a half or 2 days ago. The company Asahi Kasei of Japan, I probably butchered the name, but you'll understand. They are going to be opening a $1.6 billion new parts plant in the Niagara region of Ontario, which will be supplying the Honda EV plant in Alliston. So again, here we are with investments following investments based on Honda saying they're going to open a plant. Now one of their main suppliers has set up shop just down the road to allow them access to this new market. On top of that announcement, there's still another company, POSCO, Future MCO, is set to build a cathode active material processing plant. That location hasn't been named. The investment hasn't been announced yet, but this is another win that is potentially on the board for Ontario again in the EV manufacturing space. So certainly this, I guess this game that the Ontario government and the federal government of Canada have been playing to allure manufacturing plants and that are linked to the EV space has certainly been successful, and at this point, maybe even wildly successful. So we certainly look forward to these new enhancements to the Ontario manufacturing community, and we look forward to a few more.
Yeah, I think this dovetails into the few other TVO story we're going to be talking about a little bit later there, Mark, as well too. But yeah, when a big announcement, when a manufacturer such as Honda or Ford or General Motors it makes a big announcement in an area, there's those carry-on jobs, but for every job and every opportunity it's presented in that area, typically there's another 10 times worth of economic activity that follows in relation to that as well too, with part suppliers and supply chain and logistics and all that stuff as well too, and even construction jobs and maintenance and everything that has to go in and feed these factories to keep them running and operational. So yeah, these investments, these high level investments, when you hear about Honda building these facilities, there's so many other carry on economic benefits and effects that happen as a result of that as well too. And this is, clearly a result of that. So.
Yeah, it's big business. It's when you think about setting up a new plant, that company is investing in Ontario and its workers now for that would be a long-term plan. You don't just design a plant and put it in place, build it. You're actually investing in that region for a minimum of a decade that they're planning on producing these vehicles, these parts, and supplying the different industries that need them. So, hats off! It's a great move here in Ontario, and again, it seems to be paying off in spades.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Next story, Eric's got something about what's the Ontario Minister of Energy up to?
Yeah, so here we have a situation where, there's been some people talking, obviously, public charging and DC fast charging. Oftentimes you'll see those billing rates now. We have, per kilowatt hour billing now in Canada, in Ontario. And we're starting to see that get rolled out now amongst a bunch of other DC fast chargers. But what we're seeing is in the public charging infrastructure, especially in the DC fast charge world, some of the cost of doing this charging is often somewhere in the 50 to 60 cents per kilowatt hour rate. And, that's obviously substantially more, several orders of magnitude higher than what it is to charge at home. But even at those rates where they're charging 50 to 60 cents per kilowatt hour, many of these DC fast chargers are finding it difficult to get, establish a business case for some of these units, especially in areas where, we have lower populations or lower density populations. And you're not seeing high utilization in some of these chargers. So some of the denser environments, you'll see higher utilizations, but in some areas you will not see higher utilization. And you have the traditional means of how electricity is often generated is based off of what are called demand charges. So if you have a charging site where you have 4 350 kilowatt DC fast chargers set up there, that means now you have, that's 1.4 megawatts of power that is theoretically able to happen at peak at these stations. And so they get charged very high demand charges in order to have those services. But it'd be incredibly rare that type of station will be using that capacity on a regular basis. So, the argument comes back to, is it really fair to charge those types of demand charges to these DC fast chargers under those circumstances? And especially in environments where the utilization of DC fast chargers might even be quite a bit lower in rural communities. So they're looking at now ways of maybe they can discount these electrical rates to improve the business case for charging in Ontario for these types of sites, and especially in rural markets.
Yeah, again, another chicken and the egg type scenario here, where you've got rates are high, and if you don't have the number of vehicles lining up to charge at those stations, the business case for installing and maintaining these pieces of infrastructure is going to be tough to come by. You're going to have that issue where you don't have many people taking you up on the offer of that DC fast charger in a particular rural or underutilized location. And yet you still have the costs that are associated with the rent of the property, the cost of the actual equipment, the maintenance of the equipment, and ultimately the cost of electricity that flows through the equipment. So you've got a number of different things that is going to be difficult for the business case to make sense to someone that's trying to make a business of this.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in some cases you still have to install, a transformer of X certain amount of size, and you still have to install all this infrastructure that goes into it. But the utilization of that equipment might not be very high in Northern Ontario, for example, where you want to have those network of chargers there in order for people to be able to transverse and transit those regions. But at the same time, the volume of traffic and the volume of business that will be there won't necessarily be sufficient to make a good business case out of it. So
Yeah, and you've got some that would say, well, just put in a bank of batteries, and that would allow you to trickle charge those batteries over a period of time at the lower rate, and then you could allow people to use the higher rate once it's been stored up. But of course, batteries aren't free. And that is another part of the business case that would have to be rolled in. And of course, that's going to raise the rates of those particular stations as well. So it's not a free lunch. There are things that you have to consider when it comes to putting in DC fast charging in underutilized areas. And these are just some of them.
Yeah, so at least it's good that they're looking into this, I think, right now and looking at options for making charging infrastructure more viable across the province for everybody, not just in the denser, higher use areas. So
yeah, exactly. Next, Eric alluded to this earlier, but there was recently a round table discussion on TVO that we've linked, of course, in the notes, where you can go watch the full 38-minute interview. But Steve, the runner of the panel in the middle of the photo here, is a longtime EV advocate and, of course, host of the program. Steve actually owns a 2012 Volt and has had that vehicle since he purchased it 12 years ago, and is quite pleased with it. But Steve was able to get a panel together to discuss what we've been talking about on this channel for quite some time. And this is that Ontario has started to move into the area of a powerhouse when it comes to EV manufacturing, production, and of course, supply of EV components to the industry. And Steve has the Minister of Transport, Vic Batelli?
Federelli.
Federelli. Mm-hmm. And he also has a couple of people that are maybe familiar to you. The interesting one is the woman in the white. If you remember, she actually did a presentation for WREVA about must have been 7-8 years ago at one of our early meetings. She's a transit proponent, one that thinks that we should be spending more of our tax dollars on transit and the way that it can make the world a greener place. But they also have one on the panel that is somewhat negative about the money spent on the EV infrastructure and the monies that have gone to different organizations, and then some that are in the middle. So it's a fantastic discussion if you've got the time to dedicate to this. But what was really struck me was the amount of money that has been invested since Ontario started to go after the EV manufacturing sector. They're quoting around $28 billion that has been already committed to Ontario for this the manufacturing of EVs. And the parts suppliers that come along with it. So this is a fantastic little video, and it gives you both sides of the picture. So you can see what the pundits are saying, you can see what those are in favor of seeing, and you can see what those in the middle are preaching that we should be doing to keep this ball rolling. And yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Eric, did you have a chance to take a look at it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I watched the video and I agree. It was a fantastic video, a great discussion all around. I think on the panel, and some great points were brought up with some of the benefits and then even some of the challenges that we're facing here in Ontario as well too. And there was a few points that stood out. One of them, the professor there from McMaster University in engineering. I saw him, some of his views seemed to be a little bit outdated and he didn't seem to quite understand some of the business cases that were happening. And I actually came across a little bit impressed with Vic Federelli's knowledge and work that he's done in communicating with the automakers and stuff like that as well too. But overall, yeah, I thought it was a great thing. Some of the things that they were talking about, the media likes to throw out how the Ontario government is spending 30-something billion dollars to bring this in. But one of the points that Vic Federelli brought up, that isn't money being spent by the province. Those are future tax credits or tax abatements that are happening. So basically, we're giving these tax abatements to businesses, to say a company like Honda. They will save money in future revenues from having to pay as much in taxes. But at the same time, the business and the economic opportunity that's being generated around that should more than compensate for that, and plus add jobs here in Ontario. So I can certainly see why that number is deceiving to some people and concerning. But I thought, that's only money those are potential future revenues that we wouldn't get. But the thing is, we're getting additional business as a result of that. So in a sense, we're still in a net positive. It's always a positive. So
exactly, because if those businesses do not manufacture vehicles or do not set up the plants that have been allotted, of course those tax relief benefits will no longer be there for them at the end of the day. So they would be spending money for no reason if their plan was to just bait and switch with, oh, we're coming, and if they never arrive, then guess what? The tax relief never arrives for them as well.
Yeah. People are upset that we're, instead of getting a rough example, we're only getting $10 instead of $20 in future tax revenues. But if we didn't do that, we would get zero. So I would rather have the $10 in my hand. Thank you. So
and as mentioned, as those businesses start to spool up and start to do work, they're hiring Ontario workers to be at those plants, to maintain them, to run them. And those people are now pulling in, a good income, which again, the government taxes as well.
Yeah, and there are other businesses, again, automotive suppliers and other subcontracted businesses and stuff that'll gain business and revenue, which will also have tax benefits associated with that as well too. So on top of that, yeah, absolutely.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the other big takeaways I was going to have on this as well too is they were talking about concerns around the educational resources, having the skill labor and workforce. There is already somewhat a shortage of skilled labor in Ontario for many different things. And in fact, maybe many regions around the world have a shortage of skilled labor in this area. But that was a concern about investments. And I know Vic Federelli, who's part of the Conservative government in Ontario, faced some very tough questions in this panel about investments that Ontario has made to its universities and colleges to how we can start shaping the workforce of the future to better accommodate and better meet these needs that these businesses require.
Absolutely, and they kind of made the point that all of them were somewhat positive about the ball starting with this. Some of them were concerned about how we would keep it rolling, and certainly education is one of those things that's going to allow it to keep rolling, with STEM graduates from universities and colleges being able to supply the workers of the future for these current plants and, of course, future plants as time goes along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the comments that was made as well too was about investments that many businesses today in some regions have made big announcements for investments, but then have scaled back some of those investments over time as well too. So that was some of the concerns that were brought up. Is, okay, we have these big announcements today. Are the businesses going to follow through? Are we really going to see all this? So
yeah. So great watch if you've got some time, and certainly all our articles that we have will be linked in the notes area of the video if you'd like to link to them. Next, Eric's got a story about EV construction.
Yeah, so Volvo, which Volvo is a big company that makes a lot of different, they make everything from trucks to cars to construction equipment and stuff like that too. So here he was talking about electric construction machines, and basically what they were doing is they were doing studies comparing their electric counterparts to their traditional combustion counterparts in the workplace environments, And they were finding that these electric machines have so many benefits over top of the combustion stuff that their electric machines can do the same work that their combustion counterparts do. And they also found that there's so many positive effects on top of that that these electric things have. Obviously from the type of working environment and the noise that's being generated and the cleanliness of the environment and all that stuff as well too is so much better. You create a safer, better work environment, and it also makes construction sites a bit quieter and better in the area as well too. So it doesn't impact your, if you're working in a dense urban environment, for example, you're not impacting the people as much around you as well. So it was showing that the electrification of this construction equipment has many benefits with very little downsides.
Yeah, and certainly being on a construction site in an urban setting, you have typically high availability to charging because the infrastructure is close, and you can, of course, plug those machines in for the overnight wait until the morning shift, and fill them up. I really think that the non-pollution factor is a big thing. Traditionally these machines ran on diesel, and they would of course be belching that into the sky, the lower sky, that would tend to go over the streets where people were walking around, as shown in this photo. It's certainly a plus, and we have seen that construction equipment companies have been starting to lean towards electric. A lot of them have offerings now, which didn't exist just about 5 years ago. So certainly, as we've seen the revolution in cars, in automobiles, and now trucks, it's definitely going to be blown out to almost every area of our lives. We can see that electrification is coming everywhere, not just from the transportation sector, which we have been focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting here too was, and not just some of these could be plugged in and charged overnight, but in some of these cases, some of these machines could be just cord connected and connected directly into grid power while they're operating. So
yeah. Because they're sitting in a common area that they may not be moving around a great deal. So having some sort of a tether to the electric grid certainly would allow them to basically run forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could even see in the future possibly some municipalities and dense urban environments even starting to potentially mandate some of these types of things. From a noise and pollution standpoint. So,
yeah, we could definitely see that coming. Certainly. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about DC fast charging and the status currently in Canada. This chart was produced by Flow, of course, one of the chargers that's out there, and just interesting to see the amount of L2 chargers in purple compared to DC fast chargers in blue that are out there, and the different companies that are operating this infrastructure across Canada. We have seen recently that there's been some controversy with what Tesla has been doing because of their wonderful CEO who tends to move things around rapidly and maybe not even tell people about it because the entire supercharger team, I guess, at one point was quickly laid off, and now we're hearing that some of them are being hired back, even some managers. So, we don't know. We don't know what's going on in the internals of Tesla at this point when it comes to supercharging. But it's good to see that there are other networks that are available in Canada and have been here for quite some time. But you can definitely see a difference in the distribution of L2 compared to DC fast when it comes to the other networks. You can see that Tesla has about a 50-50 split. Everybody else that has some volume certainly is not in that area of a 50-50 split. They have far less DC fast chargers, but This article was talking about how no matter what Tesla does, these other networks are spooling up, and more structures are being built in Canada to support the DC fast charging requirements that more vehicles on our roads are going to require.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Mark. You know, we do have, there is a pretty good diversity now of businesses that are out there. Here, you know, we got Flow and Circuit Electric. They've got as two different points, which they're predominantly the same organization. But, you know, there is quite a diversity. There's also quite a lot of investment that's going in today as well, too, and into different networks as well.
Yep.
And those networks are continually growing. We talked about that in a story earlier, and how the DC fast charging network has grown so much in the last year in Canada and is projected to continue to grow at a very fast pace. So I don't envision that slowing down too much in the near future. And if anything, it's going to continue to accelerate and grow for the next little bit, which is good. As for the level 2 to DC fast charge, you know, what is that natural right balance that we need in our industries? You know, it depends on all who you serve and stuff like that as well too.
Yep.
In some cases, level 2 chargers make sense, you know, like workplaces and hotels, and even in some cases, which this will dovetail into another story we're going to be doing, is talking about you know, condos and
yeah
and other stuff as well too. So you know, in some places level 2 makes sense, in some places DC fast charging is what makes sense. So getting that right mix in there as well too is important as well. But yeah, we'll see.
Certainly, there. You know, I remember in the early days, and for me, that would be, you know, about 10 years ago. That you know, there were no DC fast chargers really. It was a technology that hadn't really started at that point. There was nothing but level 2s, and of course, companies like Flow and ChargePoint and Switch and others, they were able to fill the gap with L2 in those places where people would spend an hour or possibly two doing some sort of activity. So a movie theater or a grocery store, or, you know, a local strip mall, those type of places where people were actually going and spending time, being able to plug your vehicle in and collect, you know, 30, 40, 50 kilometers of range was what people were after. And of course, those sites still exist out there. And of course, that's most likely why the numbers are skewed in that fashion. DC fast charger coming in later, and of course, are more expensive than DL2s, and have to be more strategically placed than DL2s as well, based on you know, intercity traveling between different points in the province or outside of the province. So there is more cost in that, but I'm glad to see that we've got a number of different groups that are actually performing this, and that the network is growing in Canada.
Yeah, and you know, even to add to that point there, Mark, you know, early DC fast charging was predominantly like 50 kilowatt stations, 50, some cases 100 kilowatt stations, and now we're seeing, you know, the new norm for most EVs now are in the 200 to now even, you know, there's a number of EVs that are starting to be able to start to get the 300 kilowatt, 350 kilowatt charge rates.
Yeah.
So the early DC fast chargers now are, you know, considered somewhat slow compared to the faster ones that are hitting the market now too. And each of them have their places as well too, where you want to use those. You know, in some places a 50 kilowatt station might make sense, where, you know, if you're in a travel rest center at the, you know, off the 401, you probably want a higher power station because that's a quick stop you're looking to make. So
exactly. So we will continue to watch, but good news. Next, Eric's got something about the complexity of condo charging.
Yeah, so early legislation that came out kind of created an environment where if somebody wanted a charging, there was mechanisms in place for how people could go about doing that, but it would require either the onus was on the individual to approach the condo board and push that issue themselves, or the property management group to come forward and create an environment for the entire facility. And it created a very black and white type scenario. And what we're finding now is there's new charging models that are coming out today where you might have a company come in, say somebody like Flow or Switch, come in and offer a solution to these companies and to these people independently. And the legislation doesn't really work within that scope too well in order to be able to accommodate that. So the idea is that people are hoping to amend the condo legislation to allow more, I would say, innovative solutions for people to charge in a condo or even an apartment type environment. So that's kind of the premise of where this is coming from.
Yeah, that is certainly a complexity that people in multi-person dwellings are facing today, where they really want the ability to be able to charge their vehicle overnight, because of course the rates, it makes so much sense to have your vehicle charge up at night and start in the morning with a full tank of electrons. This is a problem because you've got a number of different groups that are involved with it, and sometimes those groups are at odds with what they want done with the property or how they want it installed at that particular property. And of course, that leaves the person with the electric car sometimes in a lurch, waiting for people to come to an agreement or figure out how the infrastructure could be actually installed at said property. And it's got to be frustrating. I would certainly advocate that if anyone is thinking about moving to an electric vehicle, that you need to do your homework before you purchase the vehicle. You would hate to be in a situation where you find out that what you thought was available is not going to be available for the foreseeable future, and you're going to end up having to rely on public charging or fast charging that may be more costly than what you were expecting to pay for electricity. So you need to certainly look at what options exist where you are, and you need to understand what the charging costs are so that you're fully aware of what possibilities are there for you specifically before you purchase that vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next, yes, our friend Ian Graham, who is gallivanting around Scotland and England at this time. I think he's planning on coming back in the next couple days. But he's been sending some photos as he's been on his Rush Fest tour. And this particular photo was a bus in Glasgow, Scotland, that apparently had just started to do its run. You've been to many cities that have had a hop on, hop off bus tour that would explain to you the city, its intricacies, the history, that type of thing. Well, Glasgow had got this and a few other electric double-decker buses that they are using on this route. And of course, what a perfect scenario. You're driving around in a city center that is not a tremendously long route. You're just driving around basically in circles on a given route, and you're able to remove the pollution factor as well as the cost of diesel, especially in Europe, where it's so much more higher than it is here in North America. So that's got to be a plus, big plus for the residents, the noise, the pollution, and the cost.
Yeah, even the riders in this case too. There, Mark. You get on some of these buses, and the diesel buses. They're clunky and they're loud and they stink and all that kind of stuff too. When you get on these electric buses, they just smoother, quieter. It's just a better experience for the user. So.
Yeah, exactly. Next, this is, of course, the ID Buzz, which has been light in North America to this point. We hear they are coming in more volume, but in Europe, they have been deployed for quite some time. So Ian was able to snap this shot of a vehicle being used for technical services on the streets.
Yeah, Volkswagen launched the short wheelbase version first, and the short wheelbase version is unfortunately only available in Europe. North America is getting only the long wheelbase version of the Buzz, which has not been in production yet, but it is entering production right about now. So I kind of wish we got the short wheelbase version here too. I think there would be, some people would kind of like that kind of option as well. But again, the Europeans seem to get a lot of things that we don't. We're seeing some of these pictures today. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Another VW offering, the ID3, and this is, in my view, a perfectly sized city and regional car. I would love for the ID3 to have been made available here in Canada. It certainly would fill the niche for many people, and of course, be able to bring the price of an EV down as well. So this is, as we mentioned at the first story, you need volume in order to really reduce price. But having more options certainly can get more into EVs than if you have less options. So would love to see the ID3 come to our shores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ID3 is very similar size to a Bolt EV, but I would say the platform and the tech is maybe a little bit newer than what was in the Bolt EV. At least previously, until we see what the next Bolt's going to look like next year. But basically, the ID3 is a great car that's being sold in Europe, and I think it would have, especially here in Canada, because Canada, we sometimes like these B segment hatchbacks. It's a great car. Yeah,
absolutely. Next, the first gen Nissan Leaf out in the street, but the story here is, of course, light pole charging. That you can see that the Leaf has been plugged into a light pole, and we've talked about light pole charging. Some of it is available in Toronto. We've got certain areas of the country that has it, but certainly the ability to have this on your street has got to be a huge plus for EV owners, and of course, those living in multi-unit dwellings. This could be part of the solution.
Yeah, and this is something where I think the Europeans got right, especially with the charge cord. So in this case, the user brings their own cord to the station. So they have a cord that they plug into the car and they plug into the station. Versus the stations here in North America, they have a cord that's physically attached to the unit. And what we've been seeing now is we've been seeing, some circumstances where these cords are getting cut or damaged. Versus when the user brings their own cord, they're sort of incentivized to kind of take care of their own cord in a sense, and you don't run into those issues as much. Or you'll sometimes go to a charging station, the cord is just laying on the ground or laying out in the open. It's people are just not looking after them sometimes. So I think the Europeans got this right with the provide your own cord scenario. So
I would agree. I think that's something that we should have jumped on and followed their lead. Next, this appears to be a cab vehicle that was in London, and the name is a little bit fuzzy on the back, but the one of the pictures had shown the word Vista, so I'm not quite sure. I know that Britain's cabs that were electric were actually mass produced just for that reason. To be cabs in London and the greater area, but this particular unit looks well designed for that, to have luggage space even in the interior of the vehicle with the passenger in the back. But not sure the brand of this particular, besides the name that I could spot on one of the photos indicating Vista.
Yeah, this one is an LEVC, which stands for London Electric Vehicle Company. So that's the LEVC London taxi, basically, that's used.
And of course, this is what they had it specially built, right, to be a cab and to be electric. And of course, with London's anti-smog rules, you in some cases can't even drive an ICE vehicle in certain areas of the downtown London area without some serious fees to drive in.
Yeah. Yeah, and this type of vehicle, it just makes so much sense to electrify.
And then I think Ian got a shot of the interior with the, it looks like the drive modes it indicates, and it's got a smart mode, it's got a save mode, and it's got a pure EV mode. So I am guessing that there might be a gasoline generator based on the pure EV mode.
Correct. Yeah, it uses a Volvo source 1.5 liter turbo 3-cylinder. And it has a 33 kilowatt hour battery pack.
Okay. So that's kind of cool to see. Next, another EV delivery van, and of course, this is a huge plus for Europe because so much of the delivery and supplier delivery in congested cities are by smaller size vans that go around and deliver items to restock stores and retail establishments. And this again is something that we could use here in North America. We have a general lack of this, but in our defense, I guess a lot more of our vehicles are much larger based on the availability of the street sizes here. That we've got those bigger delivery vans like Bright Drop and like the Rivian Amazon vans and so forth. But it's great to see in a different country these vehicles moving around.
Yeah, Europe's already got so many good options. I know some of the big companies like Renault and Peugeot and stuff like that have great small electric cargo vehicles that are good options.
Exactly. So that is great to see. So we thank Ian for sending us those photos that we could share with you. And let's just stop the sharing screen here. And we're back to the regular screen. So we wanted to thank everyone for watching today. And we appreciate if you could provide us with a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would really help us out. We would appreciate that. And Eric, any shout outs from you today?
Basically only one shout out. I guess I as I mentioned on a previous show, I took delivery of a new Blazer EV, and I went to a company in Stratford who did window tinting and paint protection film on my car, Royal Customs out of Stratford, and they did a fantastic job on the car. Really good customer service. So
excellent.
That's my shout out for.
Exactly. So did you get some PPF installed on the front?
Yeah, I did a full frontal PPF on it. So
okay.
The grill, the full hood, quarter panels and stuff. I saw the benefit I did on the Volt. I did kind of a half frontal on that. And then you could clearly see what areas had PPF and which ones did not, because I drive often between Listowel and Elmira, and in the winter that is just you're just sandblasting. So
that's true.
So I could definitely see the benefit of PPF in that circumstance, and so I got a brand new Blazer EV. I want to keep it protected. I want to keep it for the long term. So. So I'm looking forward to hopefully that working out well for me.
You have seen the benefit and are now sharing it with others. So if you certainly do some highway driving or secondary road driving where you've got dirt and grime being kicked up from other vehicles, avoid that sandblasting and get some PPF on the full front as to where the wind hits the vehicle.
Yep.
Well, with that, I think we will wrap it. We will be back again next month. Hopefully our friend Ian will be done globe-trotting and will be able to join us as well. And with that, have yourself a great day, and we will talk to you later here from WREVA. Bye-bye.
Bye.